WordPress Studio is a free local development tool that lets you build for WordPress, whether that's plugins, themes, or entire full sites, and then deploy those sites to services like WordPress.com and Pressable. Now, some of the greatest features in Studio come together to create really powerful workflows, especially when you're building sites for others such as clients. My name is Nick, and in this video, we're going to be taking a closer look at agency-focused developer workflows that you can achieve in Studio. Let's dive in. All right, so here we are in Studio, and if you've never used the app before, it's fairly straightforward. The basic function is adding new local sites. But before you do that, the first thing you should do is make sure that you're logged in. You can click this button up here, and you can log in with a WordPress.com account or create a new one if you don't have one already. This will be important later in the video when we explore sync and previews. Both functionalities are only available if you are logged in. Now, the most basic functionality of Studio is creating new local WordPress sites, and we're going to go through that pretty quickly here. So you can click on Add Site, and you have a couple options. First, you can import from a backup. So if you have a client site that's coming from a backup file, you can just import that here. It supports common WordPress backup files, including from Jetpack. Now, we'll talk about blueprints in a second, but let's just create a new blank site. You'll have options here to choose the PHP version, WordPress version, set a custom domain, that sort of thing. Pretty common with most local development tools. And you just click Add Site. Now, let's go back to blueprints. So blueprints, if you're not familiar, blueprints are a way to predefine how a site is set up using Studio. Blueprints actually come from WordPress Playground, and under the hood, Studio is powered by WordPress Playground, so we have all that functionality here. Now, Studio provides 3 featured blueprints, one for Quick Start, one for development, and one for commerce. These are a great way to just kind of get started, and we'll click on one of those in a second. But as an agency, you'll probably want to use a custom blueprint. This is really handy. You can create your own site scaffolds that are very specific to your own workflows, and maybe you build sites for specific types of clients. You can build out those blueprints and then start from the same starting point every time. But let's just click on development, and we'll click continue. Again, you have all the options to choose PHP version, WordPress version, so on and so forth. And we'll click Add Site. Now, instead of creating a blank site, when we use this blueprint, it's going to come pre-installed with a number of plugins, themes, site settings, really whatever you want. In this case, we chose a stock example. So if we come over here to WP Admin and we come over to plugins, we can see that there's a number of things already pre-installed. So imagine a scenario where you have your favorite plugins that you use all the time with clients or customers. You can specify that in the blueprint so they're already pre-installed so you can start getting to work quickly. You can do the same thing with themes. In this case, we just have the basic themes that come pre-installed with WordPress. So blueprints are super powerful, and you can really configure them however you want, but you also can start with one of those 3 that are provided by Studio itself. Now, once you've created a site, you can use a couple of these options, sync and previews. We're going to start with previews. Previews is one of my favorite features, and whenever you're connected to a WordPress.com account, you get 10 free preview sites. And if you click on Create Preview Site, this will just start creating, and it's going to create a live snapshot of this site that's shareable to your clients, to colleagues, so you can actually test in a live environment. And you can have up to 10, and they're torn down after 7 days unless you make continual updates. So they're really a great way to build a site locally, do some testing, and then share it with others for feedback before you actually push those changes to a live production site. And there we go. We now have our preview site. The way it's going to work is it's going to be your WordPress.com username separated by a unique identifier and then Studio. So if we click on this URL here, and here we are. Again, this is just a stock WordPress site, so there's not too much to look at, but you'll see this banner at the top that it's powered by WordPress.com under the hood. Now, this is a live site that you can share with anyone, and you can also log in. To get that login, you'll just need to go back to Studio. We can go over to Settings, and you'll see that the username is just admin, and then the password, you can copy it to clipboard. This is uniquely generated for every site. So if you come back over to Safari here and we go to, we can type in admin and then paste in that password. And we're logged in. And you can see that we have this little banner here that lets you know that it will be deleted after 7 days unless you make an update. So again, you can just provide this to clients and colleagues and they can log in and test in this safe environment, yet it is fully live, so you have that full experience of a production site. Now, if you want to make an update, you can come back over to previews and you can either trigger an update and then the expiration date will refresh. Now, once you're ready to actually push a site live, this is where the sync is going to come in. So currently, Studio supports WordPress.com or Pressable, and all you need to do is click Connect to Site, and you'll have the option to connect a WordPress.com or Pressable site. Note that I just have one site here. You can also create a brand new WordPress.com site using this link if you so choose. I'm just going to pick one that I already have, and I'm going to click Connect. And now this site is connected to my Happy website, my local site here. And you can connect different sites to different local studio sites. So you could imagine push to prod. Again, this is just a demo site. You can imagine this being a client site that has both a production and a staging site. You can then use these buttons to pull down content that's on the staging site or production site into Studio, and that will overwrite what's in Studio. Or you can push up changes that you make locally to those environments. Now, one of the cool things about both of these, so we can go to pull, and while you can overwrite everything, you can also selectively sync various things. So you could just choose, specific plugins. We could choose different plugins that we want to pull down. You could also overwrite just the database. Or in many cases, you'll probably not want to overwrite the database, and you'll just want to pull down specific plugins or maybe the theme that you're working on for that client. So you have those options here. What we're going to do is we're actually going to pull down everything so we can basically pull everything into Studio so we can start working on it. And so we're going to click pull. What this is going to do is it's going to start initializing a backup. Once a backup is taken, it's going to pull everything in. Now, whenever you do a push up or a pull down, a backup is taken, so you're never losing anything in case you make a mistake and select the wrong thing. But this is kind of the workflow that I like to use often. Is I will pull down the content from a live site that I'm working on, that I need to work on, make changes, work on it locally inside of Studio, and then I can create a preview so I can share it with anyone that I want to, so they can make sure it all looks good. And then once we're happy with the changes, I push those changes back up to either the staging or production site. Off from the staging, and then when I'm happy on staging, then I'll pull from staging into production on WordPress.com. You can do the same thing on Pressable. Now, note that this process does take a little bit of time, but once it's complete, we will refresh and see what the new site looks like. And there we go, the pull is complete. And if we go over to WP admin, we're going to update the database, continue. And now if we go look at the front end, we can see now that we have an actual site instead of just the default WordPress install. So let's pretend that I made some changes. Then if I want to push it back up, let's say that I made some changes to just the theme. We can uncheck these, go to the theme. The theme is the base theme. And then I would push that up and it would go update production. Again, I could also just push it up to staging. And then on WordPress.com, migrate from staging to production once I'm happy with it. So those are the most common flows that you'll typically use with Studio. You'll create a new site, you'll choose from the available options, you'll pull in your content from an existing site on WordPress.com or Pressable. You'll use the previews to share those with colleagues or clients, and then once you're happy, you'll push the changes back up. Now, of course, there's additional settings in here. Again, you can try out the different WordPress versions, and you also can use custom URLs. And then there's also the assistant here, which is useful in various instances. This allows you to do a lot of things like run CLI commands, generate content, that sort of thing. A lot more improvement will be coming to the assistant in the future, so keep an eye on that. And you can also change some additional preferences. So if you come over here, you can choose your language. You can also choose your different editor or terminal. I find this pretty useful. I'm a big cursor fan and I use the terminal as well, but you can choose whatever you wish. Now the last thing I want to show you relates specifically to Automattic for agencies. This is a program that's available both if you want to use WordPress.com or Pressable, also WooCommerce, Jetpack, and more. And it's a free program. And you can learn more about it by going to WordPress.com/agencies. And when you click on this button to join the program, you'll be directed to the official Automattic for Agencies website, where you can dig into all the details. But what I want to show you is that once you log in, again, it's free, you'll land on a dashboard that looks like this. You can see all your client sites, there's a marketplace, purchases, so on and so forth. I'm not going to get into the details about Automattic for agencies here, but I wanted to show you one cool feature. And that is when you go to add sites, you can see that you can add a Pressable site, a WordPress.com site, also import existing sites. But the big thing for this video is these free development sites that you can create. What they are is they're basically like WordPress.com staging sites that you can then use for your clients. Everyone will have full access to them, but they're just for development purposes. But if we go to click Create One Now, we can give it a name. We'll call it Nick's Studio Demo. And we can choose a data center. We'll do Central, and then we'll click Create Site. Now this will take a second to create. And you can see that I already have 2 development sites that I've already created. But once this is set up on WordPress.com, you can sync it into your local environment in Studio, just like any other WordPress.com or Pressable site. So let's head on over to Studio and see what that looks like. So now if I want to pull that development site into Studio, all I need to do is go back to sync. Actually, let's pick the other site here. We'll do Connect. And there's Nick's Studio Demo. And just click Connect. So now our My WordPress site, our local site, is now connected to the development site provided by Automattic for agencies. And I can just click pull, or I can do some local development here and then push that up to the development site. Very easy to do, all within the same workflow of syncing sites between WordPress.com and Pressable. All right, you should now have a nice overview of how you can use WordPress Studio to streamline your workflows when building sites for clients. So if you're interested in using WordPress Studio, head on over to WordPress.studio and you'll find all the information there about how to download and install. And if you're interested in the Automattic for Agencies program, I encourage you to check out WordPress.com/agencies and you can learn how to get involved there. The last thing I'll ask you to do is if you enjoyed this content, please consider liking and subscribing. It really does help others find it. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next one.